Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Casual Climbers, the podcast by and for beginning hikers and those who may not quite be physically ready to tackle the Appalachian Trail. I'm your host, Donna Patrick, and alongside me is my husband and adventure buddy, Roy.
Hey, Donna.
Hi, Roy.
So, in this podcast, we provide you with information, tips, and tricks on how to get into hiking in the Blue Ridge area. We will cover some of the hundreds of trails in the various parks in the region and hopefully entertain you along the way. We're two middle-aged, perhaps not in the best shape hikers.
Definitely not in the best shape hikers.
Who love the outdoors and want to share our experiences with you. And this week's episode, Donna, is a special one. We interviewed Shawn Llewellyn, park ranger at Paris Mountain State Park.
Yes.
Shawn is one of the architects of many of the trails at the park, as well as other parks in the area, like Jones Gap and Devil's Fork, Table Rock. So he is an expert on park trail design here in upstate South Carolina.
Yeah.
I loved speaking with him. He's a great guy, and the information he gave was really neat. He gave us a lot of inside tips about Paris Mountain too, which I found really interesting.
Yeah, he's a wealth of information. I really enjoyed that. I was thinking about that interview with him. I mean, this is days later, but that was really a good interview. I'm gonna reference it.
Yeah, I think I will too. He gave some really neat insider information, particularly on Sulphur Springs. So listeners, be on the lookout for a special feature that even we didn't know about.
Yeah, inside tips and tricks.
All right, let's get into it. Here is Shawn Llewellyn, park ranger, Paris Mountain State Park. So hello, casual climbers. We're here today with a special video podcast with Shawn Llewellyn, park ranger at Paris Mountain State Park. Hey, Shawn.
How are you guys?
Doing well.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Shawn. How long have you worked at the park?
So I started at Paris Mountain in 2005. I was hired under a recreational trails program grant because at that time we were expanding the trail system at Paris Mountain. So basically I was hired under the grant, and I worked as the trail crew boss for about 2 years here from 2005 till 7. So when the grant ran out, I left here and worked at Jones Gap and Caesar's Head for about 2 years. And then actually the ranger position that I wanted at Paris Mountain opened back up, and I got that job, and I've been back here ever since. So I think in September, I'll have been with the Park Service for about 19 years.
Wow.
That's nice.
But most of it's been here at Paris Mountain. So I know the park well, especially thanks to being on the trail crew, because when you're going out and scouting trails, you see every little piece of property that you can.
Right. So is that how you got your start in park ranger service there at Paris Mountain?
Yeah. My wife actually she showed me the job posting, and so I just put in for it. And I've always liked being outdoors, going climbing and hiking, riding my bike. So the job was like a perfect fit for me. So.
I bet. I'm actually kind of jealous.
It's a young man's job as well.
I can imagine. I work in IT for my day job, and so I'm stuck behind a computer all day. So yeah, I can imagine just being out there would be great.
Yeah, just hauling tools out all day and hiking almost 8 hours a day. It'll wear on you, but it was good. I enjoyed it.
What are some of your favorite aspects of the job?
Right now, and even back then, it's kind of the diversity of the job, because you can have a plan going into the day thinking you're going to do something else, but then 10 other things occur and you're kind of all over the place, and that suits me very well. I don't like routine things. I like the diversity of it, and that's the biggest thing for me. And also the ability to learn how to do all these different things. So it's not just like doing paperwork at a desk. You're fixing electrical issues, you're cleaning a bathroom, you're just about anything. You're going clearing trees off trails or something like that. So
yeah, you're a jack of all trades.
Yeah, you never know. You kind of have to be if you want to be a park ranger in South Carolina State Park System.
Yeah. So how are the trails created? How are they designed?
There's a lot that goes into that. It may be different for, park to park or state to state. Um, Nowadays, there's a lot of sustainability involved with trails. Because if you guys know how Sulphur Springs is and Brissy Ridge, those were kind of just built with no sustainability in mind. And nowadays, basically, you start with a flag line and you lay it out, and if depending on if it's a mountain bike or a hiking trail, there's a lot of different things that go into that. But basically, the biggest job is to get the water off the trail as quickly as you can.
Yeah.
So what we used to do is actually go out when we're laying out the pin flags and kind of getting the trail designed. We'd go out with a tool called a clinometer. And basically what that does is it'll measure the grade from where I'm standing to the next person, because you don't want to break 10, 12% grade on a trail, because that's where it starts to kind of get unsustainable and water's just kind of eroding the trail. And you also don't want to, if you have like a section that's 12% grade, you don't want to run that too long before you have a grade reversal in there where you can shed water. But basically, yeah, that's kind of how we've always done it. We've kind of conceptualized an idea with pin flags, and then we changed it. And another big thing I was taught from a professional trail builder was to always keep trail features in mind. So you could lay out a trail and it could be not too exciting, but as you're out there laying out the pin flags, you might see a big rock or a humongous tree or just something kind of neat, like a rhododendron thicket where you can create a tunnel. And that's something to keep in mind as well, is having those neat little trail features out there, because it makes the trail more exciting in my mind.
Yeah, we love it when the what is it, the mountain laurels when they're in bloom?
Yeah.
Oh
Oh
my
yeah,
goodness. Yeah. And then when the flowers start to fall, you can go through and it's just like a raining white mountain laurels. It's just
yeah. It
so
almost looks like it's snowing out there or
Yeah.
something.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There's a
Wait.
section of the Sulphur Ridge that's just past the mountain lake going up where it's following the stream, and there's tons of falls and cascades for a
Yeah,
good mile. It's the toughest trail there, at least
absolutely.
trail, but
I agree.
by far my favorite. I love that section.
Yeah, and I think keeping that sustainability thing in mind, I do most times prefer older trails where that wasn't really thought of, that are a little bit harder to maintain in a sense. But yeah, I do that's my favorite trail in the park is Sulphur Springs.
We just finished that one this past weekend, because we had hiked several sections of it in various parts, but we never did the full thing, especially coming down from the top. And
Yeah,
it's gorgeous. I absolutely love that trail.
yeah, and there's one neat feature that not too many folks know about, and I don't mind telling anyone, but so as you're going up the hike, only you're going past Mountain Lake. The stream's on your left. It's going to be on your right again for a little while. And then the last time the stream is on your left. And as you get close to the top and you're seeing the stream less and less, there's a little kind of path that goes into towards the stream, which there's multiple ones of as you're going up. But there's this big strange rock hole. It's about I'd say like 5 feet around, 4 feet around, and I don't know how it was created by erosion or something, but it's like a little cold plunge thing, but it comes up to about my chest, and if you can't see it unless you're looking really closely at it. But
Wow.
so if you go up there in the summertime and you're getting kind of hot, it's one of my favorite things to do is to just pull in there, jump in, and you can only sit in there for about 10, 15 minutes at most before you start shivering. But yeah, that's just a neat little tip for anyone that goes and hikes on Sulphur Springs.
That's pretty great. So that's right before it gets up to the Fire Tower Trail intersection, right?
Yeah, a little bit before that. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there is paths to it, so try not to bushwhack or anything. Just stick with the trails and the little because on trails you'll have if you're near water, there's always a path down where either someone's fishing or there might be a neat little waterfall thing, and that's kind of how it is out there.
Yeah.
Do you have problems with people bushwhacking and making their own paths through and trails and stuff like that?
Um, no, it's not too bad. I mean, I think there was a lot of things here before I even started. But since that time, I haven't really noticed a huge increase in people creating their own trails and stuff like that out in the park. So
That's good. Yeah.
In our travels,
yeah,
we rarely see people get off the trails, honestly. Most of them stay on.
Well, we're
yeah.
all
I mean, that's the best practice.
Yeah.
As far as leave no trace goes.
So that brings me another up to the next question. How do you guys maintain your trails?
So a lot of it's actually done by volunteer groups. Upstate Sorba's a really good one. They're at Southern Off-Road Mountain Biking Association. And then I also have just people that come out to the park, the regulars. I have a young man I know. His name's Josh. He lives on South Buckhorn Road. And if I have like a tree down or something like that, I can literally just give him a call and it'll be gone in a few days. But getting back to Sorba, the neat thing is they actually teach classes on trail building and doing trail maintenance as far as like going out to a troubled area where you have a lot of mud and stuff where either mountain bikers or hikers created a wet spot on the trail. And what people generally do is go to the right or the left of that. So then that causes what's called trail creep. It kind of pushes the trail and expands it beyond that 3-foot wide zone that you're supposed to kind of stay in. And they'll do things like create nicks and try to just get the water off so people stay on the trail. Because if you don't address those issues and you just let them continue on, typically they get worse and worse. So
yeah.
But yeah, a lot of it's upstate Sorba and just people who are good stewards of the park, and then also the staff will get out there from time to time, and especially when trees are down or something like that, especially like hazardous trees that need to come down.
How do you guys determine trail difficulty? On the Paris Mountain State Park website, you have the trails and then you have the difficulty. How do you guys determine those?
So I think there's kind of like 3 components to that that I've always kind of used. And one is that one of the big ones to me is elevation gain and loss. Because, if you're hiking a 1-mile trail and there's a, 1,000 feet of elevation gain, that's going to be extremely difficult. And then the next one to me would be the type of terrain that you're hiking on. So like if you had a old trail like Sulphur Springs that wasn't built on sustainability, might be roots and rocks and steps and all rock scrambling, who knows. And then third I would say would be like length. It could be an easy trail, but it might be 18 miles. You might want to take that into consideration because that's not going to be the easiest day out on the trail. So those are kind of the 3 things I would kind of base it on.
Okay. So I noticed too, I guess Brissy Ridge is one of the older ones as well.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a lot of
the hike only on both Sulphur Springs and Brissy Ridge are like the old trail. I mean, they were here long before I was here. But we did do some rerouting on Sulphur Springs on the opposing side of the hike only side to make it more sustainable, especially since you have both users out there. You have mountain bikers and hikers. And then Brissy Ridge, we kind of changed that was before I got here, but they changed the shared side at one point, which needs to be addressed again because you guys probably know how rocky it is on the shared side.
Yeah. And even on the non-shared side, there was last time we went a couple weeks ago, a couple of fallen trees that were pretty branchy right in the way. We had to crawl up and under, but I don't ever mind those because it's kind of an extra little wrinkle in the trail.
Well, yeah, and it also makes it like honestly more adventurous in a sense, you know.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So, what are some things that you wish that all hikers and mountain bikers knew before going on a hike or mountain biking at the park?
Well, the first thing, if you're combining those two groups into one area, I would just say etiquette more than anything. Knowing when to yield, knowing when to like kind of step to the side and let the mountain biker pass. And then also for mountain bikers coming at each other, knowing when who's supposed to yield at that point. So yeah, any of the downhill coming into the uphill mountain bikers, they should yield because they're building up so much speed. But yeah, just knowing that trail etiquette would be a big benefit. And then the other aspect of it, we were talking about earlier, when you have a muddy section of trail or something like that, Leave No Trace says you're supposed to just actually walk through that mud and not go to the right or left, which actually helps us, especially when we're maintaining trails as well. And that goes for mountain bikers as well. You just kind of stay on the trail.
So actually go through the mud.
Yeah, actually right through it. Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Doesn't seem like it's the right thing to do, but it's the best thing because you don't create that trail creep where you're potentially killing plants or just widening the trail base.
Yeah, that's good to know. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
So that speaks to the whole, how can hikers help make the park and trails better, staying in the middle of the trail, even if it's muddy. That's one thing that they can do. Are there other, of course, leave no trace.
Yeah, that and just being prepared for your hike that you're actually going to do. A lot of people there's so many factors. So it might be 90 degrees out and 3 people have like a 12-ounce water bottle to share.
No.
And you just need to rely on those factors. You never know if there's going to be heavy winds that day, a thunderstorm. So you kind of want to like plan your day according to what the weather is going to be, what supplies you'll need, just various things. You have the right footwear. There's a lot of little things you could do to prepare for that. But the big one for me is knowing what trails you're going to take and kind of being confident after looking at the map and knowing exactly where you're going without getting lost, knowing the blazes on the trees, the colors that match your hike. So Sulphur Springs is white, you should be on white, and you see that little 2x6 rectangle on the trees. For those who don't know who blazes are, yeah, it's just the little 2x6 paint marker on the tree that you see every so often, and they change color throughout the park depending on what trail you're on.
Yeah, we do try and let people know when we do a hike what color to be looking for whatever hikes. And some of the hikes that we've done have been combinations. So, we'll turn off of
Percy Ridge onto Pipsissewa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we use kind of a pretty basic system as far as trailblazing goes. It gets a lot more kind of technical when you get into like a wilderness area because they'll have like double rectangles, and that may mean something like there's a turn coming up or an intersection. So it's kind of neat to, even though you're just hiking, there's a lot of different things you can kind of educate yourself on, and that way you kind of you have more confidence when you're out there, especially if you're hiking at like Jones Gap or Caesar's Head or up in Pisgah. There's so much to choose around here. So
yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, Caesar's Head is our next park to hit. That's next on our. Do you have any recommendations for us for starting out there?
Yeah, I always like to. My favorite park that I've been to in South Carolina is Jones Gap. I enjoyed working there, but I also like how the park is situated. It's in the valley, and the Middle Saluda River runs right through there. And the hiking up, even just the Jones Gap Trail to Jones Gap Falls, is real pretty. And that's going to be on like the somewhat easier scale, even though the terrain is pretty rough on the Jones Gap Trail. It's real rocky. And then my favorite waterfall out there would be Rainbow Falls. But that one, you're looking at a lot of elevation gain and stuff like that. And I believe it's about 5 miles round trip. But I'll try to go up to that one at least like once or twice a year.
We did
And
that
then,
one, and
what's that?
we did that one already.
Okay, good. Did you like it?
Wiped us out. Yeah.
I thought I was gonna die.
Did you guys do it when it was during normal rainy conditions, or did you go when it was dry?
It was dry. We did it in
Okay. Yeah, you'll have to go back up when we get a lot of rain, because it sometimes comes down to like a trickle when it's really dry out.
It wasn't too bad. The rainbow, the waterfall itself was amazing.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
It's just getting there.
the hike up was
Yeah.
a little rough for us.
Yeah. I actually got to help build sections of that trail and that little log bridge that you go across. And we put the fiberglass bridge in as well out there. That was a full day of carrying fiberglass back and forth.
Wow.
That location. So.
Last time we were there, we got pictures of this. There was a little green snake inside one of the tubes on the fiberglass bridge walking over, and he was just sitting there in the tube hanging out all day. He was there when we went in, and he was there when we came back out.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's neat. But yeah, to get back to your one question, if you want to go up towards Caesar's Head, I recommend doing the Dismal Loop. And basically that'll kind of take you down to like Matthews Creek, and you'll cross that, and then you'll end up at what they call the cathedral. It's a big rock wall. It's just beautiful, the whole hike. But again, that's one that's probably quite a bit harder than Rainbow Falls, because I think it's about 8 miles, if I remember correctly, round trip.
So talking about the snake, what are some of the wildlife that you can see at Paris Mountain?
So one I always like point out to people that come and want to just like hike around Lake Placid. They just want to get their feet wet at the park and go for a short hike. I always point out all the beaver chews around the trees, because there's probably 100 of them or so. But as soon as you start around Lake Placid, at like the corner where the amphitheater and Mountain Creek meet, as you're walking around that whole side, you'll see where, it almost looks like a pencil sticking out of the ground, because the beavers are constantly, knocking the trees down and damming the creek up, actually, that we always have to maintain. But yeah, that one's one that sticks out the most when people first visit here. There's black bears, which we seem to have resident black bears in the past 7 or 8 years, I'd say. When I started here, I never saw one. I don't think I've ever had a hiker report one, but we're seeing them more and more in the park. And I don't know if that has to do with all the building that's kind of going around Greenville. So that's kind of neat. And I don't think anyone's had any issues there. So just keep your distance and, just look at them.
Yeah. What is the recommendation if they do it? We've never encountered a bear in any of our trails. We've seen lots of deer, but no bears. What's the recommendation if someone does come across one?
Just to be calm and just slowly kind of walk away from it, give it its distance. That would be my best piece of advice. I have seen a few bears in the park, and I had a guy running after it with his camera, and I, had like, you can't do that. Don't, so we've had, just be smart about it. It's a pretty strong animal. So
yeah, no kidding. I don't think I'd be running after one. There is that old adage about, make a lot of noise and make yourself big. Is there any merit to that?
Yeah, I think so. But I think that's if the bear's like approaching you, you'd want to seem big and hold your pack up and make a lot of noise. That might be an unlikely scenario, but you never know. But yeah, that's one thing I didn't think of, was just, making a lot of noise and present yourself much bigger than you are. So.
Right. Last time we walked on Mountain Creek, we saw 2 pretty good sized deer in that area that you cross. I guess there's a power line running through this one area, so there's a wide gap between the woods.
Yeah,
they're just there grazing, and they were pretty big.
Yeah, there's more and more deer in the park. I had to live down at Camp Buckhorn for about 6 months while my house was getting renovated. And every night we'd look out. I actually lived kind of in the lodge, and every night we'd look out the window after the sun went down, and you'd see about anywhere from 16 to 18 deer in the
Wow.
field down there. I don't know if they were grazing on clover or something like that, but they were out there just about every night, and it was a pretty neat sight to see.
Now, Camp Buckhorn is open to the public. You have to rent it, right?
Yeah, so it's a group camp. So basically, you have to rent the lodge and all 10 cabins that come with it, and basically it's a 2 night minimum as well. But yeah, it's a beautiful place. It's that if people haven't been to the park before, you get to the very top of the park. There's a gate right there.
Mhm.
If you were to rent Camp Buckhorn, you would have access through that gate, and then it's about another, I'd say, mile or so all the way down to Camp Buckhorn. It's almost like you're traversing the mountain in a sense. You're going up to the top and then going back down the other side.
We
That's very cool.
we did the North Lake Trail one time. Well, we took, Canoga to North Lake, and we saw the sign at North Lake that said that that's a fairly recent acquisition by Paris Mountain. That property was owned by the Department of Water,
Yeah,
Greenville County Department of
Greenville
Water.
Water. Yep.
Yeah. What can you
Yeah.
tell us
So
about that?
I believe I'm trying to think what year we acquired that. I'm just guessing off the top of my head. I think it was like 2003 or four when I was hired under that RTP grant. That's how we decided to utilize that property, was to actually connect Pipsissewa down to the North Lake. Canoga came like a year after that. The cool thing about that property is we do have a ranger house out there that's down at the North Lake. So that gave us another housing opportunity. And it also works well that we have eyes down there because there is some holding tanks and stuff like that down there, that someone's living down there. But yeah, I think in 2003 or four, we acquired that, and Greenville Water gave it to the Park Service at that point.
Do you guys permit swimming in North Lake?
No, then the main reason for that is the only area that we recommend swimming in is Lake Placid, because DHEC requires that we test the water to make sure it's safe to swim in.
Oh,
So we pull our permit every year and test from, I think it's like April all the way into October. And then after that, we'll shut the swimming area down for the year because no one wants to swim out there usually in January. But yeah, I mean, if I don't recommend doing that. I usually tell people if they want to go other locations, go like 5 and 6 and get in the creek or something like that, because it's not like you're kind of like wading through it. You're not really swimming. But yeah, Lake Placid's the only location where we allow swimming.
what piece of advice would you give beginning or brand new hikers?
One piece of advice I always give to folks that are coming in to look at the map, I always explain to them the topo lines on the map, and then also the direction of the trail they're interested in taking. So that gives them kind of like an idea of where the tough sections are and where the easier sections are. So when they're looking at the map, if the topo lines are 40-foot intervals of elevation, I believe that's what's on our map. I point out to those areas where the trail is just going perpendicular to those. And I can explain to them, yeah, you see that? That's going to be a hard section on the trail. So they can kind of take that information and use it just about at any other park that has a map. So if they're not sure if they can handle the terrain or whatever, they can look at that and say, okay, so that's going to be about 200 feet of elevation gain in a short little section. That's one of my favorite things to teach people that have never hiked before. And we actually have a lot of folks that it's their first time hiking out here. And those are some little things I like to teach them, that and about trailblazing. And big thing is also staying on the trail, not trying to deviate or just bushwhack through the woods, because we do have an endangered species of plant out here. And that's something that we when we're building new trail, we have to survey for, because that tells us whether or not we can actually put the trail there. And there's a lot of other reasons, but yeah, I think just some of those basic things when you're looking at a map or deciding what trail to take, I like to give them little key things that they can use as tools for hiking in the future.
What is the what's the endangered plant there?
It's a dwarf wild ginger. I do not know the scientific name of it.
That's okay. I may be wrong, but when we did the Sulphur Springs Trail, actually no, I think it was Brissy Ridge. I could swear that I saw yucca plants.
You did.
Okay, did I? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't think
Yeah,
they
I
grew
remember. Yeah, I remember seeing those when I first started, and I took a picture of it and showed it to the park interpreter, and I asked her about that. She's like, "Yeah, that's what it is." I was like, "I thought so." I didn't realize it grew here. So
Yeah, neither did I. That's why I was
yeah,
like, I can't be right. This isn't.
yeah. I mean, it looks dead on. You know, it looks the same as any other yucca plant, but I was surprised. I had no idea. So
That's crazy.
yeah.
Which trail is your favorite? Your personal favorite? At
It So mine changes through the season. So my favorite trail, 75% of the time, is Sulphur Springs. On the hike only side, I'll literally kind of hike up to the top and just do I'll turn around. It's like an out and back as opposed to doing the whole loop. But I would say October-ish into November, I really enjoy going down to the North Lake. And then, I'll take my wife down there and we'll have a picnic or something right on the dam, because you're seeing the whole profile of the mountain, and you're in front of the biggest reservoir in the park. And just looking at all the color change on the leaves and stuff like that. It's just, that's the one time a year that I prefer that over Sulphur Springs.
Yeah.
Do you take Brissy Ridge to Pipsissewa to get there, or do you go the other way?
I usually go Brissy, Pipsissewa down to the North Lake. Sometimes I even recommend to folks that don't quite want to do 5 miles. If they want to shorten that hike, I highly recommend they take Brissy Ridge to Pipsissewa and then take a ride on the North Lake and just go out to the dam, because that's like the big payoff for me out there. Instead of, if they have the energy, go ahead and do the whole North Lake loop. But if you're kind of tired and, you just want to get back, go check out the dam and then turn around and come back the same way, because that almost shortens it down to 4 miles as opposed to 5 miles by adding the whole North Lake loop in it as well. I recommend doing the whole thing, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we loved it. We loved every second of it. Those 5 campsites there, do people have to pay for those, or do they just register for them?
Yeah, so basically you'll kind of do both. I remember we were building the North Lake Loop, and I forget, one of us had the idea to add campsites out there, and we took the idea to who were then the Rangers, and they were all for it. So I think originally we may have had 6, but the 6th one wasn't really in a good spot. But basically what you have to do is there's a little bit more rules to those campsites as opposed to a regular what I call car camping or RV sites. You'll have to call the office. You can make a reservation, or you can just show up the same day, provided there's a site available. But then you also have to register your vehicle with us. So we need your tag number, make, model, and you have to do all that before the office closes at 5. And the reason for that is, if you were to just like drive up to the park and you rented a site and didn't tell us that vehicle belonged to you, we actually have to stay and run the tags and make sure it's not someone who's lost or hurt on the trail. So it's really important that, like, at the end of the night, we know every car that's here overnight, who it belongs to. And if we don't, then that makes us a little worried till we figure out who it is.
But usually that would really suck if they didn't tell you. So you guys had to every
that happens. Yeah, that happens from time to time. But usually a lot of times when you run the tag, you'll kind of see that the reservation matches that same person's name, and I'll just call them just to check. But then there's some cases where you just, you don't know.
So they have like cell phone signal out there?
Yeah, I mean,
We had it
I
at the
think in
lake.
the past like 10 years, I don't know that I've found a spot anymore that doesn't have cell phone reception, with the exception of like Sulphur Springs and 5 and 6. You still have reception there, but it's really spotty. But yeah, just about everywhere in Paris Mountain, you do have cell phone reception, which is kind of nice, especially for doing a search and rescue in the park. It just makes things a lot easier. I can literally get to a location where someone's hurt and send a pin to like the fire department, so they know exactly how to get in and where to go
That's
and stuff like
awesome. Does that happen frequent? How often does that happen that there's search and rescue?
that. I don't know that there's any like regularity to it. Kind of happens at random, but it will happen a bit more often, especially when that temperature gets up into the low 90s and up. That's when it starts to kind of spike a little bit. And I've seen it happen to people who are just trying to get in shape and go out there, to like folks that run 30 miles a week or something like that. So yeah, it's random, but it
Does it
happens
have
from time to time.
mostly to do with like people not hydrating enough, not bringing enough water, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it, but I also think that when it's 98 degrees out and you're running in the middle of the day, I don't know. I think even if you're the most in shape person, the heat might eventually get to you, especially if you're doing like a 10-mile run or something like that. So,
Yeah.
and I don't fault people for doing that. I mean, you got to get out there and live your life. So, but you also just need to be careful and hydrate and stop when you're getting overheated.
I'm really, really glad that you've been there for 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 them and possibly me in the future, but I'm gonna try not to make that me.
Yeah, don't make that up.
Yeah, and I always tell all of our like assistant rangers that are kind of starting out at the park, one of the first things they really need to do is really know the lay of the land and the trails, because when that kind of thing happens, it might just be them with the fire department or someone, and they're relying on them to get them out to the location that people are at. So as someone who lives on a park, I always say it's good to know your park.
Very much.
Even off the trails, you never know where someone may be. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my mom told me some exciting news that Paris Mountain State Park is trying to, or in the process of acquiring 140 acres of new land and
Yeah,
gonna
so we just had a public meeting the other
Tuesday,
night
right?
for that. Yeah, so basically what we're trying to do now is get another RTP grant so we can have money to build trails out there. I think it's about 4 miles worth of trails. And we do have a map. I can actually send it to you guys, that has like a conceptualized trail layout for the two different trails. Mike Watkins, our trail coordinator, he's working on kind of like tweaking the trails so everyone's happy. And also in some of the areas, the terrain's kind of a little steep, so we're gonna tweak those as we go. But yeah, as of now, we should be. It's going to be like a 3-year process from the time we get the property, hopefully the grants, and then actually have trails out there. So
That is exciting. You don't often see the parks growing in size. That's such a good thing.
yeah, especially like with Paris Mountain being its proximity to downtown Greenville and all the neighborhoods that kind of surround the park. It seems like every so often we're getting it. Like Sassafras Trail, we acquired that, I'd say 6 or 7 years ago, but it's just shocking to keep growing like this when we're so close to everything. So, but
Where,
hopefully we'll continue to grow.
I hope so too. Where is this new land located?
So it's gonna kind of run, if you were in the park and you're driving up the mountain, and if you're looking over towards Mountain Lake, it's going to kind of run up through, like if you're ever looking off at Mountain Lake, you see the really steep terrain going up on the other side of the reservoir. It's going to run up through there and then kind of up near Fire Tower, near the Stone Ridge community. And that's one of the areas that's kind of sensitive, because I don't like to see houses while I'm out on the trail. I want to feel like I'm out in the woods. And they also don't want to have hikers ending up in their backyard, which I understand. So we're working on tweaking those lines and trying to bring the trail system farther down so you don't see that while you're out there. But basically, it'll run from almost Sassafras Trail. I think they're going to try to connect it into Sassafras, and then all the way up towards the end of Fire Tower there.
That's super exciting.
That is very exciting. So the Fire Tower Trail, it wasn't on the questions that I sent you, but that was such when we first went up there, it was such a treat to see the ruins of this 1930s building right there. And the plaque gave a lot of great information. It was we stopped there and sat on the edge and had our lunch. It was great.
Yeah, that's just it's neat to know that you're walking through someone's house in a sense, being inside the foundation and thinking about what they were doing and having a fire in that fireplace and stuff like that. So
yeah, it was pretty great. But as you said, there are two spots I think on the trails that we've taken there where you can see a residential house, and that's one of them. And the other one I think is on the Mountain Creek Trail.
Mountain Creek, yep.
Yeah, there's
and that's relatively new. Prior to that house being built, I think there was like a small pond up there and you really couldn't see anything, but I don't know if the landowner or the new landowner decided to build a house up there, but yeah, that's something you just don't want to see when you're out hiking. But again, Paris Mountain's so narrow as you're coming from like Lake Placid all the way up to Sulphur Springs. I mean, there's not a whole lot. You don't have a lot of room to kind of get away from that in a sense.
No, and there's only two. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to go really out of your way to get to one of them. And the other one it's not right on the edge. I mean, it's probably what, 300 yards away from the trail?
Yeah, I'd say about that. Yeah. But yeah, in the future, I think we're going to any new trails, we're going to try to stay away from any of that. Just there's the experience there.
Yeah. So what is it that you want people to know about Paris Mountain State Park that they wouldn't normally ask or know?
Wouldn't actually ask or know. That's a good question. Trying to think.
In our last
I guess
in our last episode, I don't know if you listened. It's okay if you didn't. We covered the naming of
Richard
how
Paris.
it got its name, and how Richard Paris was perhaps not the most reputable, respectable of gentlemen.
So, yeah. If you get to reading on him, it's a little rough. But I think my probably favorite thing to explain to people is this is kind of where the first drinking water for the city of Greenville came from. That's why we have all the reservoirs throughout the park. So in a sense, Paris Mountain kind of gave birth to downtown Greenville. So that's a big one. And then, I kind of just like talking to folks and telling them, old war stories out here and rescues and things like that. And one actually came up the other day at the meeting. A gentleman brought it up. He started to tell a story about how these kids came to his house and said one of their friends was stuck in the chimney on Fire Tower Trail. And so I got the call. I was sitting down at the office. I thought it was a prank call because I didn't think someone would try to go in the chimney. But we got up there and there was a kid. I guess his friends were trying to bet and see if he could be like Santa Claus and go in the top, out the bottom. He didn't make it. But anyway, we had to get the fire department up there. What's that?
How old was this kid?
I think he was like 16 or something.
Oh, so. Old enough to know better.
Yeah. But it was funny. We had to get the fire department out there and extract him back up out of the fireplace. So I think he was in there for like 2+ hours. So.
Oh God.
I don't think I'll try it again.
No.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm curious about something you mentioned, you thought it was a prank and that kind of thing. I'm actually curious if anybody, I don't think that you would have ever spotted one, but have you ever had anybody say that they've spotted a Bigfoot in Paris Mountain State Park? Is there any kind of lore about that?
I haven't at the park, but I think his name was Al Addington. He was actually on the central maintenance crew. Prior to that, he was a ranger, I believe, over at Devil's Fork.
Uh-huh.
And I remember him telling me a story how he had to do an incident report and it involved someone seeing Bigfoot. I don't remember the details to the incident report, but
Okay.
yeah, he was one of the guys that got to write a report, and Bigfoot was in the report.
That's amazing.
I had to ask. I'm sorry. My
No, that's a good question because that's how I've heard that's happened. So
just wanted to know if he happened to be spotted in Paris Mountain.
no, I haven't seen Bigfoot yet. So.
I keep an eye out for him every single time. I'm just gonna let you know that.
Yeah, I'm always keeping an eye out. You never know.
Shawn, thanks so much. Shawn Llewellyn, Park Ranger at Paris Mountain State Park. Thanks so much for your time today. We appreciate it. It was a blast having you on.
Yes, thank you.
Donna, that was such a good interview with Shawn. I was really happy that he was able to come on and talk to us.
Yeah, I was too.
So that's our show this week, guys. We had a long discussion with Shawn Llewellyn, Park Ranger at Paris Mountain State Park. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did talking to him. And next week, we're going to get back to the trails.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to be looking for Bigfoot, I think, right?
I think so, too, yeah. Yeah, he's out there.
Yeah. So thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe to us in whatever podcast app you use and be sure to leave us a review. That's how our show grows. Feel free to check out our trail photos at casualclimbers.podbean.com. If you have a question, comment, or just want to drop us a line, you can reach us at casualclimberspodcast@gmail.com. We'll see you on the trails.
It may be Bigfoot.
Yeah, we'll see Bigfoot we might be hiking with Bigfoot.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Have a good week, everyone.